I'll give another minute. See if anybody else jumps on. Great. I'll go ahead and kick it off. Appreciate everybody joining us today. Uh, in memory of Greg, we'll start off with a thought of the day. Every May, drivers at the Indianapolis 500 kneel down to kiss the bricks, a yard of original pavement laid in 1909, still right there at the start finish line. Those bricks remind us that even the fastest cars in the world still race on the foundation built by hands long ago. The Kiwanis Club of Indianapolis is one of those foundations. For 110 years, the members who came before us laid the bricks of service that this community still runs on. And today, our job is simply to add a few more. If anyone is interested in serving on the board, please reach out to me or Wendy. Wendy will be stepping into the club president role on October 1st and is inviting club members to join her on the board. Rise Indy will award $50,000 in scholarships to 22 graduating IPS seniors tomorrow. We have a group representing Kiwanis at the lunch since our foundation has provided a grant to support the $50,000 in scholarships. The 2025 annual report is hot off the press. And if you received a mailed copy, you should have received a mailed copy. We hope you enjoy reading about the club's accomplishments in 2025 and know that you have touched many young people and given them a chance to achieve their dreams and potential through your support and involvement. You can find an online version on a website. It can be shared with potential members, donors, and supporters. Last year, our foundation awarded $144,000 in community impact grants supporting youth programs around Indianapolis, $82,000 in scholarships to Marion County students, $24,000 in service leadership program support, and 225 students were engaged in SLPs, or service leadership programs. And 13 non-for-profits are supported through community grants. The foundation meets next Wednesday morning, May 20th, for their quarterly meeting. Save the third Thursday monthly on your calendars for our in-person lunch. That means next Thursday is our next in-person board meeting. We'll welcome Dr. Richard Gunderman. He will talk about Colonel Eli Lilly. Lilly's celebrating their 150th anniversary. Eli Lilly was obviously one of the most, we'll talk about the most formative forces in Eli Lilly's life and how his story can serve to inspire contemporary leaders in healing and giving. Dr. Gunderman is an IU School of Medicine professor, author, and president of the Indiana State Medical Association. And as I mentioned a few days ago, Eli Lilly kicked off their celebrating the 150th anniversary of their founding. If there is a topic or individual you would like to hear from, please join the programs committee so we can lock in dates for these meetings for the remainder of the year. You can find all the upcoming dates and happenings under the events section of our website. Remember that we record and post programs on YouTube if you aren't able to participate. Mary, Bulk, update on social suppers.
Yeah, we had a great time at Daddy Jack's this month. The next few months, Jay Brill is going to take over because I will be traveling throughout the world, including the Kiwanis International Convention in Manila. So if you're not going to Manila, be sure and sign up to go to social suppers. In June, it's going to be the Borish Cafe in Speedway. And then in July, it's going to be Juniper on Main. We've been there before. It's very good in Carmel. And I'm not sure what he's got scheduled for August yet. And then I'll be back doing this in September.
All right,
Roger?
thank you. Yep. Roger, you're up.
All right, a couple things. On the Key Club front, they are closing out their year, of course, for school. They've all had their elections at Shortridge, Speedway, Arsenal Tech, and I'm sure Perry Meridian is far ahead of the rest of us on getting that done. So as far as Shortridge, they had a year-end party last week, which Lonnie and I went to and took some pasta. They had a great time. There was about 35 kids showed up. They had about 60, I think, in the club, 50 to 60. So many of them are in sports, they couldn't make it that night. But it's a good group, and there's a lot of sophomores coming up and juniors. They lost 10 seniors. Speedway, Arsenal Tech are a little bit smaller clubs, but they've been growing a little bit. So exciting to see that happen. And we are supporting our club and foundation are supporting 5 or 6 students, I think, Laura, is that correct? To the Icon in Dallas for Key Clubbers in early July over the 4th weekend, July 1st to the 5th. So we're proud to be supporting those kids, and they're all going to come back changed. It's all been interesting to see these kids. Next item is lunch at Iozo's. We're going to do Friday, the 29th of May. Monday that week is Memorial Day. So we're going to try a Friday, see what happens. May just be me there, but that's all right. I enjoy the food. And if we get a chance, there's our daughter just opened a restaurant across the street called Pronto by Iozo's. It is now open, and we could trek across there and take a look at it for whoever wants to come. So that's my news.
Thank you, Roger. I won't be able to join you at Ozo's on Friday. I'll be on my way to Europe, but I will definitely try and make an upcoming Friday.
Great.
Steve Farrow, update on scholarships committee.
Yeah, so we are nearing the end of the school year, so we're kind of at the end of our scholarship season, if you will. And so the end of this month, on Thursday, May 28th, the scholarship committee is going to meet on Zoom and discuss changes that we ought to consider making to our various scholarships, ranging from football to basketball to female athlete to Abe Lincoln. One of the things we'll be looking at is what is the definition of academic excellence. A lot of our sports-related scholarships are based on academics, but they were created at a time when there was no such thing as a 4.5 GPA. And in talking with administrators at schools, they say that we need to broaden or change our definition of what academic excellence is. So we're going to talk about that and what we can do. And we also give out, in addition to scholarships, we give out academic MVPs, the Colts Great Player Award in December. as part of that, with the basketball program for boys always falls during spring break, so not all of them can attend. And I had the honor of taking a scholarship award in check to Isaac Crane a couple days ago at Covenant Christian. He was one of our academic all-stars for basketball. Isaac is not only an academic all-star, but he averaged a double-double in basketball. So he's a good player and a good student, and he's going to be going to Taylor University in the fall. And Jeff, should I just go ahead and move on to the
I'm still
introduction?
stuck on the fact that you said he averaged a double-double.
Yeah. Quite a player. Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. Yes, please introduce
right.
the speakers for today.
All right. Well, when Kelly asked me if I would introduce the speakers, I realized that I've never spoken to Carolyn or to Megan, and so I wanted to bring Suzanne Thomas, who's my fiance, onto the call. And Suzanne is a member of the Hamilton Southeastern School Board, and she knows Carolyn and Megan well, and really kind of facilitated this discussion. So with that, I will turn it over to Suzanne, who is on mute, and ask her to do the introduction.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me all right? All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Stephen said, my name is Suzanne Thomas. I happen to be an active community member in the city of Fishers. I'm a board member of Hamilton Southeastern School District and a local realtor here for over 30 years. This is a topic that's dear to me, unfortunately for sad reasons, but joining us today is a wonderful speaker, which is a happy thing for me, is Carolyn Bennett Alvey. She is a sorority sister, and we graduated from Ball State University together. And Carolyn is the president at Advar Communications and helped lead the task force, the 5-person task force that is created what we all know nationwide as the Amber Alert system, following the abduction of a murder of a 9-year-old little girl, Amber Hagerman, in Arlington, Texas in 1996. Following that tragic loss of Haley Busby, which happened here in Fishers, I reached out to Carolyn and connected her with legislators, and the discussions began surrounding potential updates and amendments to the Amber Alert protocols here in Indiana. And I'm very, very grateful she is joining us today to share her experience, her insight, and her advocacy. I don't know if Megan hopped on today. Is Megan here, Kelly?
Doesn't look like she's on yet, so we're trying to get her on. So we'll let Carolyn start.
Okay. Yeah, so welcome, Carolyn. Please welcome her. And if Megan comes in, we'll give her introduction later. So thank you, Carolyn, for being here today. Nice to see you, my friend.
Nice to see you too, Suzanne. And gosh, it just, I love my Indiana peeps. I did graduate from Ball State University. My family is a Purdue Ball State family. My father and 3 brothers all graduated from Purdue. My mom and my sister and I all graduated from Ball State. So we are definitely have our Indiana connections. My youngest brother, Jess, in the past year moved back to Indiana. He lives in Franklin now, and he is the plant manager at, y'all are going to laugh at this. I kind of chuckle at him every time, but Malarkey Roofing, who is building a new plant. He is, my brother Tom is the plant manager there in Franklin. So love Indiana. Love the fact that Suzanne and I have been able to just connect with something that is so important. And I love the mission of the Kiwanis Club. I love the fact that you guys are every day out there trying to promote kids and helping them get on the right track, stay on the right track, and have a bright future. So as Suzanne said, in 1996, after I graduated from Ball State, I moved to Texas. And in 1996, had the opportunity to walk with an organization, the Association of Radio Managers, which is acronym was ARMS. And they were comprised of general managers of all the radio stations in North Texas at the time. And there were over
30 radio stations and still are. And it just, Amber Hagerman, when she was abducted and found murdered, it shook our community. It literally just shook the core. Now, technology was very different back in 1996, as we all can remember, right? We didn't have these cell phones in our hands. We didn't have laptops that we were carrying around with us. So we really relied on radio and TV as our primary ways to communicate to the greater community. And so when Amber was found murdered, there was just this rage of the community. And it turned out that that rage was then brought to the Association of Radio Managers and said, well, what can you guys do? And the president of the organization at the time looked at me and said, Carolyn, and I'm like, I don't know. We're going to find out. Like, we're going to figure it out. And so I put together this team, this task force, and we truly just dived into it. And we figured it out. And what resulted was the Amber Alert. So today, over 1,000 kids have been recovered as a result of the Amber Alert. And we're very grateful for that. It's very humbling to every time the Amber Alert is issued. It's wonderful to know that somebody is out there looking and listening for where this child may be. But today, the threats that are facing our children look very different. And our systems, like the Amber Alert, it hasn't fully kept up. So, 30 years ago, we asked the question, how do we protect our children when time matters most? So one of the people that I consulted with 30 years ago was an FBI agent. And he told me that the first 48 hours is crucial to recovering a child, right? Just absolutely crucial to finding a child alive. But now we have to ask ourselves, how do we protect our children from bad actors who get in contact with our kids that are sitting in our homes, that are literally protected? The doors are locked, they're safe, mom and dad are in the house, siblings are in the house, but these bad actors are being let into the house unbeknownst to the parents, right? Through social media, direct messaging, through gaming. So we have to kind of figure out, how does the Amber Alert evolve? And Suzanne and I really, like, that was the biggest question on how do we modify the Amber Alert for the state of Indiana? And I was so proud that the legislatures, they listened, they saw, and they heard. And so that made it a huge impact with being able to change the way the criteria is in Indiana. Every state is different. And so what I advocate for is for legislatures to take a look at the criteria. And Indiana did that, and they expanded the criteria, and that was important, and that'll be great going forward. So that kind of gives you kind of a framework for where we started, where we are today. But today we really have to look and see where the gaps are. And we have to educate parents. That is a huge gap. Parents don't understand the implications of handing a device to their child, and they think that their child is safe. Even if they have safeguards on the phone, their children are not safe. So we need to educate, and our policies need to evolve. We need to position the Amber Alert as it's still a tool in the toolbox. It's not going to build the house. It's not going to protect the house, but it is a tool, and it's a great tool, but it has to evolve. And I think we're in the process of continuing to have that conversation. And then, so what could be the role of the Kiwanis Club, right? I think awareness, having an opportunity to be in front of you today and just building that awareness, and then this video being on your YouTube channel and people listening and seeing it and understanding that the Kiwanis Club has a huge impact on creating awareness. And then advocacy. And that's where Megan comes in. I mean, she'll talk about the advocacy of Haley's Law, and that's important. That's really important. And then amplification, like, how do we really share these resources? How do we help stories of telling and reaching more families? So I think there's so much that still needs to be done. And what I want to do is make sure that we are protecting the Amber Alert across the country, because it plays an important role, but it also needs to evolve. And with that evolving situation, we've got to understand is how does it evolve and how does that ultimately, how does that protect our kids? So I see that Megan has joined, so I'll let Suzanne introduce Megan.
Hi there, Megan. Welcome, everybody. This is Megan Tomlinson. She is the founder of Silver Lining of Hope, created in the honor of her mother, Leslie Hope Houston, whose life was tragically taken in October 2024. Her organization serves as a dedicated resource for families and a strategic partner to law enforcement. Megan has also become a passionate advocate for Haley Busby and Haley law. So Haley, as we know her story, Megan and I kind of joined forces in the early beginning, working with Carolyn to advocate for making changes to current law. But Megan is out at the forefront, spreading awareness regarding Haley's Law, which starts now, working into hopefully our next session. So welcome, Megan. You can speak on who you are a little bit, and welcome to our talk today.
Hi. Yeah, so Suzanne already said a lot about me and what my organization does, but we work on 4 different pillars of hope is what I call it. So HOPE, which would be we work with homicide. So we help in hidden homicides, cold cases, and murder cases. We help with case review. And then for the O, we do outreach and advocacy. So we advocate for many different things along these areas. We help families and we're a case guidance. And then we also help with system navigation. And then the P is for persons missing. So we help with investigative protocols with different frameworks on the OSINT, and then search operations and research. And then education, we help with training, awareness, system reform, and then professional development as well. Pretty much we just, as it says on there, we just help out however we can. So whether it's a prosecutor, a detective, or a family member, or someone that we find ourselves, so victims who are voiceless, we just help however we can help them.
What questions can we answer for you all about not only the Amber Alert, but Haley's Law? And what questions do you guys might have about how my resources and Megan's resources can tie into what you guys are doing in the community as well?
Hi, Carolyn and Megan, Steve Furo. So you mentioned there are gaps that exist because of the changes in technology. And, I think all of us who have kids have experienced that challenge when you put that, smart device in your little one's hand for the first time.
Yeah.
What are some of the gaps that you see that need to be addressed currently?
Well, there's quite a few of them, unfortunately, but the first one is just awareness. So before a parent puts any kind of technology in a child's hands, they need to understand that the bad actors, they are way ahead of you parents. They are way ahead of law enforcement. Law enforcement does an amazing job of trying to keep up, but they have very limited resources. So we need education. That's the biggest gap. It is a huge opportunity for everybody on this call to be advocating in their community with their children and grandchildren and neighbors and church members and friends, that there is a problem with awareness. So I have 3 sons, and when they were teenagers, they were gaming. And I did not know. I had no idea that they could be talking to people across the world. They could be talking to people across the community. I had no idea. And so it was a lack of awareness on my part when I realized like they could be talking. I'm like, who are you guys talking? They had these headsets on. I'm like, who are you all talking to? And they were telling me that they were talking to people they're friends. And we end up having to sit down and have real conversations about this, right? Real conversations about who they're talking to. Um, but the other gap is in Haley's case, she was lured out of her home by a bad actor, like somebody who wanted to do harm to her. And she didn't know it. Her parents didn't know it because this person didn't introduce themselves as a bad person, right? And so we just need to really advocate and have conversations about direct messages and what those mean and talking to people you don't know. So that's the first part. And then the second part is really need to be working closely with our law enforcement. What are they seeing? What are they learning? Because here's these bad actors that they're way ahead of us in technology. Then there's law enforcement, then there's parents, and then there's kids, right? So there's all these steps. If the bad actors are always ahead of us, but law enforcement is, trying to keep up, we need to be communicating with our law enforcement and doing more town halls and more communication in schools. We need to have more opportunities for kids to hear from other kids, from other young people about how they were impacted. The FBI just issued an alert this week that there are groups out there that their names are changing. Our reporters here in Dallas Fort Worth have been reporting on this week, but there are these bad actors that are their names are changing. They change who they are, everything. They're constantly moving, but they're after our kids to get them to send compromising photos, and then they blackmail them. And so we need to be having conversations about what that looks like and feels like. And then technology needs to have parameters on it, in terms of being more forthright with whether that's Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, now X, but was Twitter. All these platforms and all these gaming platforms, they need to have real conversations about how they're protecting our kids, because ultimately that's not their goal. Their goal is not to protect our kids. Megan, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I think obviously there's a lot of gaps, and I would say that a big one is going to be teaching our children and teenagers about what to look for, because even after this awful tragedy, I saw a lot of training workshops pop up, and they were not for the children. They all specifically stated they were only for adults and parents, which I think is okay, but I just don't understand why we're not teaching, the teens and children about it, because they're the ones being manipulated at the end of the day. It's like if I was being tricked, I would want to know what to look for. So why are we not teaching, our children these things? And I mean, it's just that in itself is huge. Um, we teach kids fire safety, we teach them stop, drop, and roll. And it's not because we expect every child to be in a house fire or any fire at all. It's because if it does happen, we want them to know what to do just in case. And I don't know why we're not doing that with online safety as well, teaching them this is what to look out for. This is, what you can do. These are ways that you can, get help. And then obviously the missing person system needs to be changed as well. In every state. It is, it definitely needs change. That's a whole other thing that I'm very passionate about. I also think something for parents to learn is something called being, and it sounds very simple, but it's something called being a trusted adult. This means learning, well, let's say if you go check your child's phone and you see things that you don't want to see, right? Your reaction matters so much in that moment. As much as you might look at that and say, oh my goodness, I can't believe you. What are you doing? And, you might just kind of freak out a little bit. We as adults have to learn how to not have that reaction, because if I'm a child and that's how my parent reacts, I'm never, if I ever was going to come forward and say this is what's happening to me, I'm definitely not going to once I see that reaction. So it's learning how to pause, before you react emotionally. It's about staying calm during these times so that your children can communicate with you. It's learning to not panic, to not, all of these things. It's about uh focusing on understanding and safety, and even if you're like, well, you were sending photos, let's say, chances are in that moment you're not going to understand the extent of what has happened to them. And there's likely blackmail, just so many things. So yeah, so they put something up on the screen, which is very good. um I think out of everything that I've learned from doing this research, this is the most uh effective thing that I've learned, that I'm really like, wow, like that makes so much sense, and I don't know why it's not being taught more.
If I can chime in a little bit with Hamilton Southeastern Schools and what I learned with the state, um, we currently, when they just made some changes, keep in mind they did not change the Amber Alert. We have also in the nationals called the Silver Alert, and the Silver Alert is for handicap and elderly. And what the state legislators currently have done is change parameters so we can make so the police officers' hands are not tied when they go out to make an immediate look. They have better parameters that they can do things quicker. So that being said, part of the other thing is the education that's going out and that we have now in our district, and I know other school districts are doing the same. We're not only just educating the families, but now we are bringing it into the students as well. I feel we should go a little younger, but we're just in the high school right now. We kind of need to get into intermediate and junior highs as well. But they are starting those discussions in the school districts and state legislators right now. I know Hamilton Southeastern, we haven't brought it out publicly yet. I'm just sharing something. We are going K-2 device free. So Hamilton Southeastern schools will not have devices in the classrooms and in the schools anymore, except for testing. So again, trying to limit the amount of times during the school hours that kids are on their devices. It doesn't fix everything. Responsibilities also start in the home and start with the families and start with kids. But we do, number one thing Carolyn and Megan both have said is education to the students and to the people who are around. That is the most important thing, because it's awareness. It might not happen to you, but if you hear about it with a niece, a cousin, a child, a friend, you can say, hey, I heard this, and that's how it gets shared over and over and over. So another student may be able to share it with another student.
And I do want to say about the Amber Alert. So when we created the Amber Alert 30 years ago, I mean, technology was light years behind where it is today. So think of it as I mentioned earlier, the Amber Alert is a tool in the toolbox. That's it. That's what it is. It's a tool. But imagine if you are, you need a screwdriver, and the screwdriver you pick out of your toolbox is a Phillips head, but you don't need a Phillips head. You need a flat head. So what we've done with the Amber Alert is we have changed the parameters, the criteria of the Amber Alert to expand it to give, as Suzanne said, the law enforcement in the state of Indiana literally was tied. They could not issue an Amber Alert in the case of Haley because the state legislature had said, here's the criteria. This is the criteria. And if a police officer or a law enforcement official in the state of Indiana issued an Amber Alert beyond that criteria, they would be held accountable. They could lose their job. They could be reprimanded. And so why is there any incentive then for a law enforcement agency to say, hey, we believe that Haley may have been taken. We believe that Haley may be in danger. But if we issue the Amber Alert outside of because of the state mandated law, this was an absolute failure that we as a society had not reviewed the Amber Alert criteria in 30 years for the state of Indiana. And so what I advocated for is let's look at that. And then I don't want to put words in Megan's mouth, but I love what Megan is doing and saying we need more education. We need more conversation. We need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect our children, and not just our children, but adults too. Yes, Suzanne, that's awesome. I love that you're wearing the bracelet. Yes, beautiful. So I think that, we need all these partners. We need law enforcement. We need schools. We need the Kiwanis. We need the Megans of the world. We need the Carolyns of the world and Suzannes of the world. We need all of us to come together because we have one mutual goal, one, and that's to protect our kids. That's it. That's to protect our kids. And so anything that you can do to have a conversation. Having conversations, you may think, well, what can I do? Have a conversation with your kids and grandkids and friends and neighbors and everything else that you can have conversations. But then also, if once you have that conversation, take it a step further and seeing if there's an opportunity. Could Megan's organization come and speak? Could another organization come and speak? Can we find students that are willing to come and speak and say, this happened to me. I don't want it to happen to you, and share their stories. Those are very powerful.
Megan, can you share a little bit where you are right now with maybe the Busby family and state legislators or leaders on the pink alert and on Haley's Law? I know where I am, and Haley's Law is they're going to have committees this summer, but where are we on the pink alert right now, and any conversation going forward, maybe to update this group?
Yeah, so I'm not really 100% sure as to what is going on with all of that, but I will say that the pink alert is actually very a way that you can help advocate for it is that it is very closely related to what is called a turquoise alert in the state of Arizona. But you can also go to, and another way that you can help advocate in cases of missing persons and children, if you go to warn.pbs.org, I'll type it. You can see all of the other alerts that are issued by other states, by other law enforcement agencies. You just have to really filter it. So you can go on here to the side and click like all alerts. And then you could go to like, I don't know, just Arizona or anywhere really. Let's see. I'll go to Arizona and see. So whenever I go to Arizona's, if you want to do that over there, if you click that right side button with the arrows. Yep. And then go to back to list, filter, click all alerts, and then go to Arizona. Click on states, Arizona. I think it's because there's so many alerts, it doesn't show you like all of them at once. But if you zoom into that now, yep. Zoom out just a little bit so you can see the state. Oh, okay, click back to list. Yep. So then if you zoom in there, yep, you can click on those and you can see different alerts. So like that one, you can see it was only for a specific area. But you can do that with many of them. Yep, and then you can see the information that they gave people, etc. Because the thing is, Amber Alerts are amazing, but the research says that if you annoy people and you give them too many alerts, they're not going to listen and they can turn it off on their phones. But you can target the alerts. So actually in Indiana, we have Fort Wayne police do this often. So any police department can use this without it being a law. It's the same technology for whenever you get alerted about a tornado being near you. That doesn't go to everybody in the state. It goes to phones within a specific area. So that is the same technology that the police can use at any given point in time to send out different alerts about missing persons and children. And I'll say too is with Haley's case, the main thing wasn't that they even wanted to do an alert, right? Because they didn't consider her to be endangered for over 2 weeks. They thought, oh, she's just a runaway. And, that 2-3 weeks later, whenever they upgraded the alert, people still, it was very biased, right? So they were already like, well, she's just a runaway, right? So nobody really cared to look for her. So that's another reason why we need to change some wording around, right? Different protocols within different police departments. I think personally, the only time a child should be listed as a runaway is if my son John Doe is at Jane Doe's house and I know that's where he is, his phone says that's where he is, right? Okay, he just doesn't want to come home, and then he's a runaway. But if social media accounts are deleted, you have no idea where they are, the phone's not pinging, etc., you can't really just say that's a runaway, I don't think. It's very irresponsible, in my opinion.
Well, that's where I feel like, there needs to be, from a law enforcement standpoint, there needs to be more education there. And they're doing the best they can and they're trying. And I think the challenge is, like 30 years ago, when I went to talk to the Dallas Police Department about helping with this Amber Alert, 30 years ago, they were just starting a task force for abducted children. That was 1996. And when you think about what has evolved in the past 30 years, like, okay, well, now we're so far advanced with technology. There's so many more needs and so much more education, but so limited funding. We just have problems with getting education done. It's not that the police officers don't, or the law enforcement don't want to help. They do want to help. They're very caring. They're very loving. They wouldn't do what they do for a living if they didn't care. It's understanding, it's realizing, it's trusting. Parents were very emotional when about our kids, right? And if our kid is missing, we want somebody to come in and rescue them right away. We want them to be found. And so police is trying to sort through what's the emotional standpoint, what's the facts, but we've got to have somebody coming alongside parents. And if my child were to have disappeared, they were great kids, great grades, go to church, have lots of, community sports teams and everything. If I said, no, my child didn't run away, but the police didn't believe me, that's heart-wrenching. And so parents have to be listened to. They have to trust what they're telling you, and you have to trust that you're coming alongside them. And 2 weeks, it's just too long. It's just too long. That shouldn't have happened. And that should never happen again. We can't let Haley's death be in vain. We have to let it mean something. And that means that we have to make sure that we're protecting the next Haley, and that the law enforcement, whether it's in Indiana or on the East or West Coast or in another Midwest or in the South, we have to do better. And so these conversations are really important.
Right.
I have another question. I talked to a sheriff in Hamilton County, and he said that parents would be shocked if they really understood how advanced these predators are.
Yes.
They're like criminal masterminds and manipulators.
Yes.
And so when you think about our youth and you're giving them this device that has so much power, I almost wonder if when people get a driver's license, we have them take a test. So maybe there ought to be an educational resource that, if you're under the age of 18 and you get a cell phone, there should be some educational program you go through to warn you that there are these predators out there, and what are the warning signs, and how do you know that you can trust someone? Is there a resource like that out there? Because I'm interested in that PBS.org site. Maybe PBS has something.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different, I'll type in some different resources for you guys. But I don't know if there's something just like that right now. Um, so Kid Smarts is a really good thing for children, teens, parents, and educators, which is through MEC NCMEC. Um, yep, that's it. So they have that one, and I think then the Net Smarts, which should be on there somewhere, is for the older ones.
Yes.
Um, and then I mean, there's a lot of them, so I'll type in a handful of them. Uh,
I really like the kids smart ones for the younger kids. I mean, it definitely, I think Suzanne mentioned this earlier. We have to be having conversations with kids when they're in elementary school. Now, it has to be age appropriate, right? Parents have to be, thinking through what that looks like and everything, but having conversations at the dinner table about um, people who ask them questions, certain questions. Where do you live? What school do you go to? Those types of things. You don't share that information. You don't communicate that information. And then, just there's Suzanne also mentioned that, in her school district, they're looking at banning phones. And in our school districts in Dallas, Fort Worth, we're obviously a top 4 market in the country. Different school districts have already taken those actions, and some of the larger school districts, Dallas, Fort Worth ISD, the school district where my kids went to, Plano ISD, have all taken these tax to limit the activity. That's great, but these kids aren't necessarily getting lured at school. They're getting lured when they're at home, when they're laying in their bed at 9, 10 o'clock at night and their phones are in their rooms. And so communicating to parents, look, we had a very, very strict rule in my house. No phones in your room. No phones in your room. And at 10 o'clock, when you're in high school, they were 10 o'clock, the phones are on the kitchen counter. And before I went to bed, I made sure that each phone, my kids didn't even get phones until they were freshmen in high school. They didn't have phones. I was talking to my 26-year-old just the other day, and I said, "Remember when you were begging me for a phone?" And he's like, "Yes, I begged and begged." And I said, "What did I tell you?" And he said, "You said I don't care what other parents are doing." And we have to come together as parents and say, "Stop doing this with putting phones in your kids' hands in elementary school because all the other parents are allowing it." Be the parent to stand up, say no, and just be that strong parent that these kids need, because when you put that phone in their hand, you are opening the door for these bad actors. And Steve, absolutely, they're light years ahead of us. I just put a link in there for the FBI warning that came out 2 weeks ago that the media in Dallas Fort Worth is just picking up on this week. I was mentioning earlier, these people are so far in front of us. I couldn't even tell you the technology that they use to find our kids and to attract our kids. And so these are really, really important conversations. And when the FBI comes out and says, "I need to warn parents about this 764 network that's all around the country," and they're attracting, they're getting our kids and attracting our kids. But then you have the whole AI conversation too, and that probably is a whole nother opportunity we need to talk about is AI.
I'm going to chime in real quick here at the end, and I know we're going to wrap up here soon. So I will say one of the other biggest things that law enforcement has brought to our attention, and the school districts as well, is it's not just you could be a safe parent and a safe student, okay, and a safe person using it. The problem is the bad actor. You have a making up a number, a 48-year-old gentleman who is acting as a 14-year-old little girl. So when they're playing those video games, there are no parameters for that little girl to not think she's talking to someone who's in the school next door or a neighbor down the street. So that bad actor over time gathers that information. And the problem that we're having too is it's the gaming companies that they have to put those parameters in place to restrict the security a little stronger of how they're able to have access, and then breaking the access for the student to even have, you have to be maybe 17 and older to be able to even have chat. So you can't play that part of it. I don't know. Or are only the people that the parents log it. It's such a bigger conversation. But as a parent and even adults, my brother and brother-in-law, they play video games back and forth. And one time they found out that one of the kids, gentlemen they were playing with, was a 14-year-old teenager. And they're like, dude, and they had to kick him out because they didn't want a kid in their group. So
Right.
adults are gaming, thinking they're gaming with each other. Some of them are relatively innocent, and then these teenagers get into that group. So there's something in the gaming industry that they have to find a way to block
Right.
the people that are communicating it. And that's where I'll leave it from there. And I know you two might want to have your final words before we finish.
Megan, let you.
Oh, the gaming and app stuff is a whole different world. So I've volunteered with something called Predator Catchers for numerous years now, and part of that means I recently got onto Roblox to see what it was like and to see, and I mean it's insane. It is a predator's playground. I even went on there and put that I was underage, and I, saw, okay, what does it, make me do? And it made myself take like pictures of myself, and then it said, yep, you're that age, and it let me speak to people in that age range. But not just me, but also the president of this organization also did the same. And he's, oh, I don't know how old he definitely does not look like a teenager though. And they said he was a teenager, so just because I think he put his age as that. So then imagine then you have children doing it, or just other adults. And it's like with Roblox, you can just go in there and like I can, turn up the volume in a room and just listen because you can tell like these are little children who are speaking.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. And it's very hard to limit those things because not every app developer has morals. They're not all going to comply, because you can't make it like a worldwide thing. For example, Telegram, they do not comply with law enforcement subpoenas, which is, I mean, it's crazy. But there's many companies like that who do not care about online safety for children. Um, so yeah, so that's very hard is all I was gonna say. Um, so teaching children, advocating for missing persons, missing children, advocating and helping, educate our law enforcement officers. Um, I think something good to say to yourself, especially if you're a law enforcement officer, would be as you're taking this report, I know a lot of it's paperwork, whatever, right? Imagine to yourself, what if this is a cold case missing person for the next 30 years? If you knew that, like while you're taking that report, would you change how you are taking the report? I've seen a lot of uh reports, especially lately, of missing like older cases, especially where one case in Hammond, Indiana, officers did not check in on this missing disabled 20-year-old female for over 25 years. And then, there was hardly any information. So whenever they did go back and look at it, they said, well, there's not enough information here. Close it. So definitely, with our reporting and everything else, just so much needs done. So just advocate, share missing person flyers, advocate for these different laws, and yeah.
Thank you, Megan. How about you, Carolyn?
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me today and listening and just being aware that there's an issue that we're going to technology is evolving and we're going to have to continue to stay on top of this. And, like I said, I really hope that you'll have conversations with your circle of influence, because that's where real meaning changes. Just having conversations with people within your circle. So thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. I was thinking as you were talking, there were so many things that need to be done, and I imagine every year there is just a new thing that you weren't even thinking of that needs to be addressed because it's changing so quickly. The good news is, I was thinking, I've worked at Kiwanis International for 25 years. The extent to which we go uh, to protect our youth programs, the youth in our youth programs, from when I started to now is night and day.
That's
Um,
all.
we're always improving, but we can
Yeah.
always get better. And Laura, who's on the call, deals with it every day. We are going to be making a donation in your honor to Pause and Think. Their Pause to Read programs are held at schools and libraries in central Indiana, and they offer young people the opportunity to connect with therapy dogs while practicing their reading skills. So thank you so much for coming on with us today. And for the members online, thank you for joining us, giving us a part of your Thursday. With that, we are adjourned.
Thank you all. Have a great day.